It's been 25 years since the streets of Los Angeles were thrown into chaos during the LA riots. Tonight, people are reflecting on the shocking events. The LA riots erupted after the acquittal of 4 white police officers whose beating of Rodney King, an African-American man, was caught on tape. Some of the riots, looting, and arson occurred near USC's campus. A barber on Vermont says she was scared for her life when the riots broke out.
Well, yes, we spent 2 weeks not eating or drinking because there was nothing to eat. No way to survive during that time that left us feeling scared. We were frightened.
Estela Cerne was 23 years old.
It was like a war zone. There were explosive fires, a lot of police, a lot of soldiers in the army. They were there, so it really made me scared because we had never seen anything like this. And I was thinking, we were asking ourselves, what will happen? What will happen now?
After the riot started, Estela said she had to quit her job at a barber shop here on the corner of Washington and Union. She said she didn't feel safe going to work and she didn't feel safe going home. She was forced to sell things on the streets of Los Angeles and was out of work for months. But now she cuts hair at the Trojan barber shop near campus.
The whole area is now really nice, really calm. It's changed a lot.
A USC professor reported the riots live for ABC News.
Is less than 10 miles from South Central. The two communities have been...
I can't believe it's been 25 years. I remember driving through the city when it was burning. I remember palm trees lit up like tiki torches. It was Dodge City at its worst. It was scary.
She says it brought racial tensions to the forefront.
The failure of the media to be reporting on communities other than places where crime happened. And that's how this area around USC and south of here was reported on.
Someone else who was there at that time was DPS Chief John Thomas. He spent 21 years with LAPD before coming to USC. Thomas was working as a police officer during the LA riots, and he's here with us now to share some of his memories. Well, thank you for being with us here tonight. I was hoping we could start by, if you could tell me a little bit about what exactly it was like to be in law enforcement during such tumultuous times.
Specifically, the riots themselves, or civil unrest, it was surreal. I had been on the police department for probably about 7 years at that time. I grew up in South LA. So it was very surreal for me from the standpoint of one, being a former resident of South LA, to now being in a position where I was supposed to be protecting the city and upholding the laws when there was total chaos and anarchy everywhere you looked. Just an overload of your senses because there was crime and lawlessness going on everywhere you looked. So as an officer, what could you do?
Well, as an officer, I know it must have been a really difficult atmosphere to be in, but what can you tell us about what it was like not only to be an LA resident, but yeah, trying to enforce law in a time that it was almost lawless?
Yeah, at the time I was on the department, I was working undercover narcotics at the time. So the first night of the riots, myself and some other officers went out undercover as scouts, basically, to provide situational assessments of what was going on. And probably the next day, because our situation assessments were pretty much the same, they said, okay, it's time for you guys to come and get in uniform and help us out. And the situation assessments went something like this. You'd see a group of people standing in front of a building, a brick would go in, a bunch of people would rush in, loot everything out, and the next thing you know, it was torched and burned up. And that went on just throughout the city. So after a while, it became kind of redundant to hear the same thing, and the reality was we were needed in another capacity. So we put on our uniforms and did the best we could to try to enforce the law.
How would you say that the riots affected the community, and have you seen any change from then until now, especially in the USC community? Yeah,
I grew up in this community, and that was part of the sadness of being in the riots at that time. Was I watched a lot of businesses that my parents and my grandparents had patronized throughout the years burned down to the ground. So these were business owners that we knew and we patronized, and they had nothing to do with the verdict, and they lost their livelihoods. So looking at today, it's a totally different community. First and foremost, the city is much safer. At that time, we were dealing with the scourge of crack cocaine and gang activity, and all those things were pretty prevalent at the time. And those are, thank God, things that we don't have as much of in this area as we did back then, 25 years ago.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thanks for being with here tonight. We really appreciate what you have to say, especially on the 25th anniversary. Back to you.